Hello, everybody. Hello and welcome to this panel discussion that we have today. My name is Monica Leonaita, and I'm CEO and founder of OpenHack 2020 Australia, which is a business organizing global hackathons. Now, today we're going to discuss about gaining funding versus after gaining funding. And it's part of She Loves Tech series events when we recruit companies that are female-founded or provide services or products for females. And today on our panel discussion, we have three amazing women entrepreneurs. I'll start with Vanessa, who's Director of Strategic Partnerships at Antler. Then we have Catherine, founder and CEO of Brighta, and Siobhan, Director, Scale-Ups and Innovation Labs at ACS. So today we'll discuss shortly the topics about what do venture capitals evaluate during the investment process for a tech startup, advantages and challenges in female-led startups when raising funds, and how funding should be distributed as an early stage startup. So my colleague Connie will take this discussion further on. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Monica. I'm Connie. I'm a co-founder and CMO from Tangram, and I've been in fintech industry for 3 years. So Tangram is the first smart wealth creating platform in Australia. It delivers a simple and easy way to build your wealth faster by earning rewards from the daily spending. We are pretty honored to be the strategic partner of She Loves Tech and glad to introduce this kind of competition to Australia for the very first year. And we're calling all female-led or female impact startups to join us, which is why I've had the chance to talk to all of you, and in particular with the three fabulous speakers. So we're going to start off today with a keynote speech from Vanessa and getting some questions, and then we just go from there. Also, we have 5 minutes Q&A. So for everyone who is attending the webinar, please do not hesitate to import those questions into the Q&A feature. And also, we are very keen to hear something from you, like where you're from, which industries you are in. So Vanessa, could you give us a very high level of how important it is to build an ecosystem for startups?
I sure can. I've got a little presentation today, so I'm going to share that with you now. Just let me know if that's coming through. Okay, we'll have to do it this way. Can everyone see that? Fabulous, thank you. So as shared, I'm Vanessa and I'm Director of Strategic Partnerships at Antler. I'm honoured to be presenting today for She Loves Tech on the importance of building a supportive ecosystem for female leaders in tech. It's obvious the startup and tech ecosystems continue to grow. However, I'm going to tell you something you already know. There are much fewer startups founded by women and even fewer senior female tech leaders. The tech sector has an ongoing need for employees, yet women are in the minority, occupying only 23% of professional IT roles overall. Less than 1 in 20 girls consider a high-paid career in science, technology, engineering, or maths, compared to 1 in 5 boys. Women are underrepresented in STEM careers globally, so there is a need to do more for 2 reasons. The number of tech roles are increasing, so to keep economies growing, we need to ensure women are interested in taking on tech roles. And according to international research, tech firms that have gender balance have better financial performance. There are many barriers that face women in tech, including unconscious gender bias and double standards. When pitching to investors, women are often asked about what could go wrong with the venture, which is prevention, while male co-founders are generally asked about what could go right, promotion. Women entrepreneurs also face the challenge of cultural stereotypes, where entrepreneurship is linked to personality traits stereotypically associated with men and masculinity. There's a lack of visibility. Women are less likely to know someone who is an entrepreneur and therefore less likely to become one themselves. Investors and the public in general often assume that successful entrepreneurs are men. And there's a shortage of funding. The Australian government's 2019 Boosting Female Founders initiative reported that 38% of female founders reported funding, investment and money or capital as a barrier for female startups. And there also seems to be a lack of networks, mentors and champions. Many female tech leaders shared they didn't have inspiring role models or wide networks to draw on. And in general, women lack the same strength in professional networks as men, which makes it harder to draw upon when starting a business. There's also lower confidence and a lower risk profile. Reports show that women have lower average levels of optimism and self-confidence and a higher fear of failure than men. And fear of failure is negatively correlated with starting a business, and these combined effects have been shown to contribute to the lack of female startups. And then there's often a lack of opportunity beyond training. So despite a growing landscape of mentoring and female-focused initiatives, there is still a lack of opportunity beyond the programs in both building and funding female-led initiatives. As an example of unconscious bias, researchers who studied the results of 3 entrepreneurial pitch competitions also conducted 2 experiments in which a representative sample of working adults heard identical pitches in male and female voices. 68% of people preferred to finance the company when it was pitched by a male voice, while 32% chose the female. And some of the stats. The overwhelming research shows women-led ventures perform better. Private technology companies led by women are more capital efficient, achieving 35% higher return on investment. And when venture-backed, they produce a 12% higher revenue than startups run by men, according to the Kaufman Foundation. When founded companies in first-round capital's portfolio outperformed companies founded by men by 63%. And as this slide shows, the average venture capital firm could have made an additional $85 million over 5 years if they just invested equally in both men and female-led startups. So how do we change the landscape, and why is community important? The research has shown that there are 6 ways to really change what's happening in the space in technology and in startups. So being conscious about gender balance, introducing a program to enhance the minimisation of gender bias, and also becoming really conscious of it yourself. You can actually go and check your own gender bias. This is for men and women. At Harvard, they've created a program called Project Implicit, and you can actually test your bias towards almost everything. So it's not just gender, but you can test on gender as well as race, age, and a lot of different other areas. So go and check your own unconscious bias as a start. And then you can also get your teams to do this as well. Obviously, increasing visibility, as the saying goes, you can't be what you can't see. And visibility is without a doubt instrumental in raising the profile of women ventures, and it can equally serve as inspiration. Improving funding opportunities. At Antler, we're committed to build more successful female-led businesses and to lead as a VC that is prepared to back founders and companies that don't fit the perceived historical success model. Also, building networks. As mentioned in the previous slide, a lot of women don't have access to networks just intrinsically, so we have to build those networks in order to help women find the avenues for growth and revenue streams. Then increasing confidence and reducing risk. Women tend to gravitate towards environments that are more collaborative and tend to avoid highly competitive and testosterone-driven environments. So there are ways to change cultures which can alleviate pressures and risks facing women. So particularly in the startup space, we are starting to look at the environment that we're creating to make sure that we're creating a space that it feels safe for women to come and be founders. And then the opportunity beyond the training. We hope at Antler, through a program that I'm about to talk about, to create opportunities beyond the training so that we attract more women into the Antler program to think about becoming founders, and also train entrepreneurs to be more courageous to speak up and start their own initiatives within an organisation. So as I mentioned, that leads me to the Reindeer Network. We launched this at Demo Day in June. The mission of the Reindeer Network is to support passionate women to advance their careers in entrepreneurial pursuits through a development program and community. And our mandate is to lead the charge on supporting gender parity within the startup ecosystem by connecting women founders, leading industry discussions and debates, and promoting diversity within the startup industry. And our objectives, we hope to change outcomes by increasing the number of Australian startups founded by women, develop new products and services by startups founded by women, increase financial investments, and support women to improve their earning potential through entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship. So there's a quick overview of the Reindeer Network. Reach out to me after the event and I'm more than happy to share our Reindeer website, which is about to go live, and also ask you to join the Reindeer community. We'll be launching an academy at the Reindeer Academy next year, where we'll provide training and access to Antlers masterclasses, as well as training specifically around the challenges that I mentioned before, around risk aversion, culture, and even quieting the inner critic. I know that I often suffer from imposter syndrome, so that's one of the things that we're also going to be training. And I think I was quicker than 10 minutes, so I'm happy to go straight into the panel discussion.
Thank you, Vanessa. That was fantastic, because I'm also co-founder, and we are much appreciated to have someone like you or the association community to support startups on how to scale up, how to have the connection with investors, and something programs that you have is it's very impressive. So probably Siobhan and Catherine, can you introduce yourself and what do you do very briefly?
I'll let you go first, Catherine.
Oh. Okay, thank you. Okay, so Catherine McConnell, founder and CEO at Bright. Bright started, we went live in the end of 2016. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to help all Australians access a sustainable and comfortable home. And so how we do that is at the point of sale, where households are making a purchase for their home, so solar, batteries, or some type of home improvement, we're there at the point of sale. And so we have a tech solution, and we've created a finance product. And so that helps the businesses in solar and home improvements close the sale, increase their sales and conversions by helping those customers with a way to pay. So we have a loan, we have like a BNPL payment plan product, and in 3.5 years, we've done, about $700 million of approvals. We've got about 60,000 customers, households that have used Bright as a way to pay. And we've got just under 2,000 businesses around the country who are using us at the point of sale.
Great, so Siobhan.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Well done, Vanessa, too, on that presentation. My name's Siobhan Casey. I'm the Director of Scale-Ups and Innovation Labs for the Australian Computer Society. In my role, I'm responsible for 3 spaces in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane, where we can accommodate up to 450 entrepreneurs and their teams. And we focus particularly on scale-up businesses, so post-product, post-revenue, utilising deep tech to build new solutions to current problems. So using deep tech such as AI, machine learning, and we're agnostic to verticals. So we have businesses or entrepreneurs that are looking at the future of work and the impact of technology and how roles are automated or augmented. We're looking with how AI can be used to select the embryos for IVF treatment with the highest chance of success. We have businesses that work in virtual reality and augmented reality headsets for marketing and content for businesses. So a whole range of things, medical, medtech solutions as well. And our job is to help them grow in revenue, grow in talent, and of course, secure funding, which is what we're here to talk about today.
Beautiful, thank you. So today we're going to talk about like a founder, especially a female founder, everything like you should know and you're supposed to know. So we are also very honored to have 3 of you, like from different perspectives, from an investor perspective and also from founder perspective. So what I observed in the market now is, full of uncertainty, and the economy seems like totally shut down, and no one is going to know, when the market is going to bounce back. So I believe all of you have experienced this kind of time before, like VC investment, the volume declined dramatically during the past uncertain period, let's say 2008. So Siobhan, could you share your thoughts on what we can learn from the past and what will happen after this pandemic?
Well, when you were talking then, to be honest, Connie, I was thinking about the notion of, is the funding pipeline still as relevant as it was, say, a year ago as it is now? And some of our discussion the other day was around, there's always funding for the right deal. And it's that ability to communicate your deal effectively to the interested parties or to get in front of the right VCs. I think a lot of businesses looking for funding can get lost in the trap of presenting multiple times to multiple different stakeholders. So a bit of homework in the first instance about who would be most aligned to my business or my type of solution or tech platform. and then focusing on those people and selling your proposition well would definitely increase your chances of capital.
Yeah, okay. So Vanessa, do you want to add on some comments on that?
Yeah, I was going to absolutely agree with Siobhan. And talking about the GFC, I think, as we mentioned in our discussion the other day, Australia and New Zealand were particularly impacted. And for those who don't know, I'm actually in Auckland. We moved over here in January. So we are really seeing a completely different impact on both economies this time around. And absolutely agree that for the right businesses, there is still funding. Obviously, Antler is still deploying capital, as are many of the other venture firms in Australia. What I would say is that the types of businesses are changing. So obviously anything in travel or tourism is not something that would be particularly interested in at the moment. And that'll change again as the economy and health globally recovers.
Yeah, very interesting. So actually, they say they are always, trying to find startups that with great deals. So always good deal is always there. So yeah, the product and service, they can solve the problem that people are facing in this environment or post COVID-19 is the key. Even like the big things, they always come after downturn, like Uber or DocuSign. So just to name a few. So probably, yeah, as you said, maybe as a startup, this is a challenging time, or it's not just a few months or even years. I think we will be coming out stronger than ever before after this pandemic. So let me slightly redirecting to the operational side. There's so many voices in this market always saying the companies are losing revenues and very struggle to stay alive. I mean, it's not such a big deal as a startup because you didn't have that much revenue to begin with. But Catherine, as the founder and CEO of such a big company, so what do you have to do in terms of managing the crisis, especially in this challenging time? Could you share some of your experience?
Yeah, for sure, Connie. So I think it helps that, I'm 44 years old, so I'm not 20 years old. So I've been working for, 20 years or so since I finished uni. And that's really given me some life experience. And so I was there when the GFC was on, actually. I just had my first child. And so I have real life experience of, what happens before a GFC, like what those warning signs are effectively, before there's an earthquake. And then, and then what you have to do, and then, what kind of happens and how you get through it. So that experience really positioned myself, my executive team, and the business really well. And so, my feedback would be, in times like this, I think scenario testing is really important to kind of think through as quick as you can, all the possible things that could happen to your business in a downturn. And then not just in that downturn, to kind of think, like even at this point today, to think through all the different things that could happen over the next 6, 12, 18 months. And so, it's a lot to think through. There's a lot of different ways, I guess, your business could go, but you really have to spend that time thinking about that and then thinking about how you're going to react to all of those situations. And I think in a growth stage company where you have little revenue, or where you do this scenario testing and then you realize your revenue is going to be highly volatile, so it's going to be impacted by these different scenarios. Survival is key as the first thing. And so I think as a founder, my recommendation would be to do the scenario testing and then to be extremely focused in what you need to do to be able to survive. In a high growth environment, you can grow and you can test lots of different things, and it's easier to raise money to be able to test and then grow. But in an environment where it takes longer to get funding, or it might be harder to get funding, you have to be extremely focused in what the core things are that your business needs to do to get through the next period of time. And so, my recommendation after stress testing is to be very, very focused in what it is you have to do over the next 18 months. I think that, that's what you have to do on the corporate side. On the company side, so the people side, you've got to over communicate, and transparency is key. However, you don't have to tell everyone everything because, there are some things as a founder you'll have to keep to yourself, sort out. And then as soon as you can tell the team, transparency is key. So, whether it's Slack channels or emails and, just regular check-ins with your team, making sure people know how to navigate uncertain times, make sure that they know you have a plan and you've thought through different scenarios. And then as those scenarios play out, remind people of the plan, remind people, repeat again and again. So, you know, that's my kind of feedback: stress test, focus, over communication, and then transparency as soon as you can is key.
Connie, I might just jump in on the back of what Catherine's recommended there, particularly around focus. I was talking to a business last week who is about 3 years into their business model and is, you know, struggling with cash flow, which is a common theme and particularly more common in recent months. And in the conversation with them, it became apparent that they were quickly being distracted by opportunities not fully aligned to their business aspirations or vision, to garner, you know, a corporate opportunity to white label something on their platform, or to modify or customize their platform to accommodate a project that was, you know, shining over here or shining over there. And we have spoken probably every few months about their business over the 3 years. And I sort of said, this would not be a conversation you could ever have with an investor in your business, because you're not fully focused on the vision, and you being, as Catherine stressed, true to your path and getting it done. Because if you're constantly going off pathway to get your next paycheck in, you're really never going to realize your business. And I understand the driver, and it's, you know, you need to survive and you need to pay your bills. But I think I actually had a really lovely session yesterday online with Simon Sinek, which was a real bonus. But he reminded the audience in that session about, you need to be focused on an infinite vision for your business. So, and when you hit troubling times, and I subscribe to it, it's not about, oh gosh, how do I continue to make money? It's, how is my product still relevant to my customers? And if it's gone through a pathway of getting it to them that is now impacted by COVID, how do I ensure my customers can still access my product? What do I need to do differently to solve their problems still in a different way? So I think constantly focusing on your customer, constantly being focused, as Catherine talked about, will help where possible for you to stay on pathway and continue to be successful.
Oh, great, totally agree. So to summarize, actually, you know, it's if the staff, they are really looking at the cost, the cash flow, and also cost structure, that they can really survive, and also to keep everyone updated, like you are still, you know, in this market, and really focus on the customers and the services, so that you can, you know, it's kind of like a game plan that you can prove to the VC or to everyone, to your customers, that you can still that your products or services is really needed by the market. That is a key thing, I think. Thanks for sharing. So let's pull back onto the actual investment side. Vanessa, maybe let's go with you this time, because you are representing VC communities for today. So do you see any changes on investment criteria for tech startups? Which sectors are you currently looking at, and what verticals you would avoid? I know maybe we have touched about a little bit, but probably you can share something very, you know, more deeply.
Yeah, what I would say is that we're seeing that a lot of founders are coming into our program with particular passions around issues that they want to solve, and where we're seeing particular growth is in fintech and SaaS-based solutions. And where we're not, we had an amazing startup a few cohorts ago who was looking at a migration solution, which would have been fantastic under normal circumstances, but obviously COVID had just hit, and unfortunately it wasn't something that we could pursue with. And the other thing that I would say is that the investors and the venture capital decision makers are getting much harder about wanting to see commercials and wanting to see the clear communication of where those revenue streams are going to come from, and a clear path and rapid access to customers and revenue. So I think the speed to MVP and growth needs to be faster in this period, rather than slow. And so that you've got to pick areas that are growing, because there are areas that are growing economically in this space. We can see them, you know, Amazon and anything that has to do with delivering online, or platforms like Zoom has gone gangbusters, obviously. It's our new normal now. So it's taking advantage of those opportunities during this time, but also looking at a business that is going to be sustainable beyond this.
So Kathleen, could you share some ideas of you?
So share some ideas on raising capital in downtimes.
Any changes on investment criteria for tech startups? I mean, from a startup or in the business owner's perspective.
Okay. Yeah, so we've raised 65 million over 3.5 years of equity, and we've raised just under $300 million of debt in the 3.5 years. So we've raised quite a lot. And so, you know, what's quite different to most growth companies is we raise equity and debt. So the debt is for the funding of the loan book, and then the equity is for initially we used the equity to fund the loan book, and now it's just, you know, funding of the business. And what has changed? I think it's really important that you have a really deep understanding, as Vanessa said, of your commercials and understanding of your financials. And so understanding of your unit costs. And so what it is that you do and how it's going to make money, and along the way, how it's going to make money and how that's going to change. So for instance, you know, on day one, here's how it's going to, you know, here's how it's going to work. And then, you know, as the different inputs to that product that you're creating, you know, how they're going to change over time. So for me, for instance, one of the biggest inputs to my product was accessing debt funding. And so at first I had to use equity, and then I had to, you know, get some more expensive debt, you know, so the debt was about 10, 11%. And, you know, over time, I've been able to bring that debt funding down to about 4%. So, you know, and that really has a substantial impact on the profitability of my business. And so that's an example for me of, you know, having a really clear understanding of when I was doing my seed round, you know, I was going out to investors and I was saying, like, listen, it's not going to make money on day one, but here's my pathway for how it's going to make money. And here are the different things that I'm going to do to ensure that I get there. And that's why I need this equity, because I need to, you know, build all these frameworks to be able to get to the point where, you know, and so I think understanding your unit cost economics, understanding your cost to acquire, your cost to, you know, the different costs that you have within the business and how they're going to change over time is really, really important. And so I think if you have really good knowledge of that and you're solving a problem that really is a problem. So it's not just something you're excited about, but if you're solving a problem that's going to make a difference, you know, you'll be able to prove that there's demand for that product. And you'll be able to prove that over time, it's going to generate revenue. And it is just a timing thing. And it's that timing issue is the reason for why you need to get equity investment. And I think those fundamentals don't change, you know. So I think in economic downturns or in good times, like if it's a fundamental problem that you're solving, like you'll be able to show that, you know, that equity is needed to solve for this timing difference. And I think that, you know, we raised some money during COVID. And, you know, one of the feedback that we got was also, it wasn't just the problem that we were solving, but it was also the team. And so, you know, the investors really backed that we had built an amazing team and that our team, you know, had the right skills and the right culture, and that we were going to be able to get through this and navigate whatever was ahead of us. And so the investors were, you know, not just backing the product and the problem, but also really backing that we'd built the right team and the right culture. And so I think it's also really important as you're building a company and thinking about funding, not just, you know, the commercial problem, but also how are you going to build that team and equip that team with what it needs to solve that problem and be successful.
And I just wanted to jump in and add something. Sorry, Siobhan,
I was going to jump in.
Before you. I just wanted to add, yes, absolutely the commercials, but I also noticed the poll when no one put market size. And what I can say is when our VCs are looking at competitive advantage and looking at who to invest in, market size is actually really important from a VC perspective. If you just want to start your own small business, absolutely fine, you go and do it. But VCs, market size is incredibly important and crucial. Sorry, that's all I wanted to add. You're Siobhan.
No, it's just when Catherine was talking, the team piece, definitely agree with that. What I've seen with some of our businesses as well that have gone for funding is their resilience and adaptability is something we've talked a lot about in recent years with people as entrepreneurs or people that are intrapreneurs or just people in general, to be honest. I mean, we've all had to show resilience in the last period of time. But one of our businesses who is looking at the future of work, one of the measures that they have in the impact of technology on particular roles is a sociability component. So how closely they work with others, how much they need to meet new clients or interactions. And because of that measure and analysis, they were able to quickly, or chose to quickly, pivot their model to help businesses understand the impact of COVID on their teams, rather than, you know, the traditional way of viewing the business of in 5 years, this will be the impact. They were then able to say, well, our data inputs tell us that the impact on your business today with social relevance of team members, and in this role, they would be the last people that you would have return to your office, whereas people with a lower social score could potentially come in with lower risk factors pertaining to COVID. So now that's a good example where someone has seen what they're doing as a business. It's still true to their pathway, but it's just a different way of sharing the learnings or the insights on their platform. Which I thought was quite clever, and definitely VCs look to say, well, how can you adjust and adapt to what customers currently need now? That lots of new requirements became apparent with the advent of COVID, of course, with businesses and communities. One of our businesses is assisting the state border with live footage and reading of data through camera, camera footage and sharing that with police force and etc. So that's been adopted quite quickly on the advent of COVID. So one of the other things I heard Catherine talk about was actually having a strong, really genuinely solving a problem. And I think there needs to be a distinguishing point between the better mousetrap. So a product that maybe does something slightly quicker, slightly faster, maybe with a nicer customer interface, versus genuinely building a new solution rather than assembling existing technologies. So if you've got a business and if you're an entrepreneur on this session today and you've got something you think is really strong and unique, your chances of success are much higher because, the competition is lower. And further to Vanessa's, if the market size is there, you've really got to identify your market and your revenue opportunity and your ability to scale that. And if you can communicate that to VCs, they're definitely interested.
Lovely. I personally, I totally, loving your ideas. Like a good deal is always a good deal. Like you totally spot on there. I think you have been mentioned about the market size and also the team resilience. Like to how to build the office culture is always a big part of to building a team that is more resilient, and also the social ability, the product. So I think as long as your product is customer concentration, it is just a matter of timing to speak with the VC. So a good product should speak for itself. So yeah, thank you for all of your ideas. We have given some pieces of advice about what startups and investors they are particularly looking for. So I presume in this challenging time, investors they're gonna have to make some decisions virtually rather than meeting the people in person. So probably anyone of you can share some ideas about that. Probably you can dig into that question a little bit more deeply, like is it necessary for early stage startups to get the capital and how to build the relationships with them?
I can
you go, Catherine.
Oh, yeah, no, sorry. I can just speak about one of the investors that I got on, Airtree. So Craig Blair, he's a managing partner there. And so, it was like October 2015. I started the business, like building the business. It was in mid 2016 that I went out for seed funding. And so I went to, all the VCs in town and my product wasn't on the market yet. And, did 100 plus kind of meetings. In the end, I got that round from family and friends. But it was at that round where I first was introduced to Airtree. And so Airtree weren't able to invest at that round. But, my kind of feedback to, people who are needing funding is that I didn't treat the Airtree no as something that I was offended by. I treated it as not yet. And so, you know, I kept that relationship up. And so, you know, I'd update them, and, you know, I took Craig out for lunch, and so I kept that relationship up. And it was 2 years later that they led my next round. But I think it's really important that the resilience is key, and funding might mean just not yet. You know, you may need to do some more work to get people on. And so for me, the relationship that, you know, I think it's really important to have is, you know, start that relationship early, not just when you need money. And if it wasn't a yes this time round, like, keep people updated. So set up an email list, you know, whether it's monthly or quarterly, and keep potential investors updated of your key milestones, so they know what they missed out on, and they know what you're building, and, you know, they stay up to date to your business. So when the time comes that you need to raise money, everyone knows who you are, what you're doing. And I just think that money relationship shouldn't just be when you need it. You know, these are potential partners who are going to be aligned with you in really tough times and great times. And I think it really shows the type of person that you are, by showing how you want to engage with these, you know, with these different people. And so, yeah, that would be my feedback around getting funding. And if you do that, I think it really bodes well and holds you in a great position when you do need funding in a downtime that you already have established. You know, you've done that groundwork.
Yeah.
I love that feedback.
Yeah, can I just jump in? I mean, what you've just described there, Catherine, I think is excellent, but it also is something that people could adopt an approach to key customers. So you might try and engage a key customer on your product, and it may not result in an immediate transaction or a sale for you, but keeping them updated on email, keeping them updated about your product enhancements, keep that story and communication going. So it's genuinely a relationship you're building, rather than trying to have a transactional relationship and then leaving it because it didn't work and moving on. I think can also, and I've seen it work with other businesses, prove quite beneficial. So it may not happen today, but if you keep that communication up, like you've demonstrated with VCs, but with customers, it can also prove great.
I was going to say, communication is my favourite thing. I think it's the most important to building all relationships. And I was just thinking, as you were talking, you've got communication, commitment, and consistency. I love that you're proving that throughout your communications with Airtree. And I wanted to go back to the question that you asked Connie about virtual. So Antler's been in an interesting position over the last 2 cohorts. The second cohort in Sydney, the second half of the cohort was delivered virtually, and the first half of the third cohort was started virtually. I think for the second cohort, they did all of their pitching to VCs virtually, so like this. They were very well established, and it was obvious to us who was going to be successful, and that didn't change whether it was virtual or not. What we've found is that the founders, being virtual to begin with, have had to work a lot harder to build trusting relationships because they're looking at starting businesses with people they don't know. So I think it impacts different parts of the journey, this virtual connection.
Yeah, so totally interesting because it's it's like the VC or investor, they are also adjusting themselves in adapting this new normal in terms of the way to connect with startups, and also the deal flow structure, something like that. But the thing is because we think, I believe most of the audience for today, they are startups at a very early stage, and I have been in that situation as well. So what if we really didn't get enough initial fundings? Any other options for startups, for the funder? Probably Catherine, can you talk about that as well?
So do you get it? Do you have any other option?
Yeah, any other options for get the capital?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can do different types of equity instruments. You can do straight equity or convertible notes. I see a question in the chat there around social bonds. Like, did I use social bonds? Yeah, I didn't go down that pathway. I just have used always straight equity and issued preference shares, or just ordinary shares in the company. For me, that was simpler. I've always looked. Raising capital is really complicated as it is, so always just look for the most simplest way to get the money in the door. Yeah, I mean, as far as different parties that you can raise capital from, there is a really good sheet around. It used to be on a AVCA. It might be on the Airtree website at the moment. Actually, I'll have to check.
I think it's on Airtree.
Yeah, it's on the Airtree website, and it's a list of all the potential people that you can go to for funding. So it's not just the VCs, but the family offices are on there. And so after I did my seed round, which was family and friends, and I did get a Morgans, so Morgan Stockbroking. There was a group of Morgans brokers and clients that came in on my seed round, which was fantastic. But my second round, I had Mike Cannon Brooks come in, and his family office invested, Grok. And then I've had other family offices join. So I've had Skip, which is Mike's business partner, Scott Farquhar, and his wife, Kim Jackson. And then I've got the Milgram, so Naomi Milgram and her son, Adam Milgram. So she's the owner of Sports Goal and Suzanne. And so I've had some different family offices come on. And I really love working with family offices. If you get that opportunity, I'd highly recommend it. It's a nice kind of blend between a VC and, family and friends. I think the sophistication of family offices really differs. So as you get to bigger family offices like Mike's, they're really well established and they operate, more similarly to a VC. But that list on the Airtree website, has a great range of, all these different parties. And then there are, I guess that one step down from a family office is more like high net wealth individuals. And my recommendation around high net wealths and family and friends would be to find people who are aligned with the problem that you're trying to solve. So either they've been founders before or they understand the industry that you want to operate in. And it makes it so much easier then to communicate with them, because what you're trying to do is new and you've already got enough barriers that you need to overcome. And if you can kind of take this one less thing that you have to explain to them because they understand the industry or the segment, or, they understand part of the problem, it's then less that you have to prove to these people and less unknowns that you have to try and make them more confident about. And so I think pre-revenue, I did family and friends. High net wealths, and it still took me like several months, and I had 33 of them come on, so it's quite a lot to kind of navigate when you're just a very small company. But for me, that gave me my best outcome. I raised $3.5 million through 33 people, and that gave me kind of 18 months runway to kind of get going and build it and prove that I had a product like an MVP effectively. And then on the back of that, I was able to get Mike Cannon Brooks in. So I think you may not be able to get the big VCs in on day one. My third funding round brought a VC in, my second, the family office, my first family and friends. And, when I reflect on it, I think that's probably quite appropriate, for what other founders, might be able to access as far as the different stages of, the different types of funding you can attract at different stages.
I think it might be nice to add, just for people that are on the session today that are, less advanced in their business, that the idea, the effort involved in capital raising is not to be misunderestimated. And the notion around having what's called a due diligence folder is often a term touted, an information memorandum. The due diligence folder has all your financials, has all your policies, has aspects of your culture and what you're doing around business and vision and whatnot. But it also, as a business, you need to decide. So the decision around funding needs to be quite clear. Funding is simply consumption, debt is consumption brought forward. So you need to think about, do I need to take debt on now or capital raising now to give up part of my pie? Or can I do, bootstrapping for a bit longer to make sure I've got some revenue coming in? So all of these decisions need to be very clearly thought through, because every time you take capital on, you're giving away part of your business. And those that invest early, you're hoping will do what's called follow-on rounds where possible, so they can continue to grow with you. So I think, you know, having someone, if you're looking at this point in time in your business to do capital raising, it may be great to reach out to a couple of people that are mentors in that space or have gone through that in their experience, to give you some counsel and to give you some challenging questions that you need to resolve for yourself. So it's quite seductive to think, wow, someone invested in my business, or I got $1 million in my business, et cetera, et cetera. We need to think clearly about when is the right time to get investment, do I need it, and what is that relationship I need? So a few things to consider.
Yeah, very helpful. The thing is why, like we always talking about, we need to get the capital, we need to get the capital, but we never think about why do we need it and what drives us to, you know, to get funded. That should be on top of everyone's mind. And also, I think Catherine has talked about, you know, actually it's totally depending on what funding stages you are like seeking help. Maybe you can seeking help as a very early stage. You can seeking help from your family and friends, like high net worth individuals, angel investors, and like very middle or later stage, you can seek some help from your existing shareholders and even, you know, the VCs. Then that will be the, you know, funnel plan. So yeah, very interesting. Let's move on to a very interesting topic. Studies show that the share of VC dollars that flows into startups funded by women has increasing for years. But since last year, it was only, you know, less than 3% of total investment. But the reality is, being female founders, as Venetia mentioned before, as a female founder, it is much harder to get the capital compared to male founders. But on the contrary, actually, they are creating much higher ROI and innovation revenue. Why are female-led startups, they are less attractive to investors? Catherine, what are you saying the reason behind that? Because I'm very curious about that. It's kind of like a conflict.
Yeah. So say that again.
I mean, because women, they are creating much higher ROI and innovation revenue, but they are, you know, it's pretty hard for them to get the funding compared with the male investors. So what is it behind that?
I just wanted to make sure so I really liked Vanessa's slide, you know, because I hadn't seen that one, Vanessa, about the male pitching and the female pitching.
Shocking,
and I was like,
right?
I was like, oh, that's not right. So, and it's a really hard one because, you know, just to be honest, I don't like it when I see successful females say they are not feminists. Mm-hmm. So it's just a personal kind of gripe that I have. Like, I kind of think, well, of course you should be a feminist. You know, of course you should be pro helping other females like get a step up and be better than you. So that's how I see being a feminist, you know, and that's something that I really want to do. I want to support females succeed. And if there are biases towards women, and I think you can't deny the facts, you know, so the facts are there that there are biases, and Vanessa showed those biases. I think sometimes it's really hard, like from my experience, sometimes it's really hard to understand if you've been biased. So you can be in a situation and you can kind of say, well, you know, maybe they didn't choose to invest because I'm a female, or maybe I just didn't do a good presentation. And so for me, you know, I haven't had specific situations where I've kind of, it's been really obvious that I haven't been able to succeed because of my gender. And I don't know if, you know, me doing 100 kind of meetings before the seed round, before I got funding, was because of my gender, because I know raising seed money pre-revenue is really, really a hard thing to do. I think that, you know, my husband's always says to me, you've got more masculine qualities than I do. And he's very masculine, he's alpha male. So, you know, I do know that, you know, when I was at Macquarie, I largely worked my whole time there in a male team. And I know what it's like to push and fight. And apparently I have a very high risk threshold, is what I've been told as well. So I think, you know, Vanessa, when you talked about some of the traits that you need to succeed as a male versus a female, I probably have some of those traits. And that makes me really lucky. Sorry,
I'm the same. I was a tomboy, I'm outspoken, I'm brash. Like, they're all things that are not typically feminine.
And I think so then we have an obligation to help people who are not like that. You know, that's just how I see it.
I absolutely agree.
And I'm not always dominant in those traits. Like I do have part of me that is more relationship driven and, you know, may have certain aspects that may not be seen as dominant male traits, you know. And so, you know, I think it is, you know, upon me to, you know, to help other females, because conscious bias exists, it's a fact. So to help other females, to do what I can to share my experiences, and, you know, to help uncover any, you know, any things that may be hidden and I've kind of learned along the way and, you know, can help people. And then I think, Vanessa, it's really important to kind of talk about the facts and just make people know they are facts, and let's, you know, go onto the Harvard website, and I will find this website and make sure I do it, because I find myself still having conscious bias, and it's in stupid little things that I say where, you know, at home, the family are talking about something and I'll go, oh, so what did he do? Or, you know, I straight away jump to these things about assuming if it's a certain role, it's a male. And I know that I have it as well. So it's just helping everyone, you know, be more empathetic, be more genuine, and calling it out. I guess if you are really sure that you see something, and then making sure that, you know, that when someone does call something out, that we're the ones who are empathetic and not kind of, you know, doubting them or challenging them. And but yeah, I can't speak to any personal experiences about having been declined funding because of my gender, but I can say that the people I have that have invested in me are amazing, and you know, and I kind of look at mistakes I've made along the way. I don't know if it's because of gender or I'm naive, I've just never done it before, but, you know, I really have appreciated their support, and, you know, I would like to think they invested in me because it was a great business idea. But, you know, for me, it's hard to tell.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Catherine, because since we are almost out of time, so probably in 1 or 2 minutes, for everyone, what is the final piece of advice that you'd like to give to audience? Once you get the funding, how can you distribute the funding after that very wisely? And if you don't have enough funding, any advice for reducing cash burn and extending the runway? Probably 1 or 2 minutes. Let's get started with Vanessa.
I think with cash burn, it's figuring out what's essential, and ask your female team members, because as the research shows, women burn less cash than men. Just to bring it back to gender for a second there. So I think, yeah, figure out what's essential, and also look at opportunities for revenue streams that you may not have thought of that are unique to the business that you're creating. So be agile, as well as clearly focused on what your main business is, but just always have that periphery open to see what other revenue channels you could create.
I'm going to add on to that, Vanessa, the notion of taking cash out of a business, you know, for whatever reason, whether it be COVID or just, you know, general cash flow is getting to the last 6 months of your runway, can actually be quite a powerful experience to really examine, as Vanessa advocated, what is important in your business and what isn't important. And I think from my experience as well, there are a number of assumptions in business, and particularly startups and tech platforms, and we, you know, run decisions off the back end of assumptions. Try where possible to ratify those assumptions as correct or not, and then, you know, remove as many assumptions as possible. So, you know, when you put X dollars in, you'll get X dollars returned. So you can create a bit more certainty where possible in your business, rather than, oh, I think if I spend X dollars on social, I'll do this and I'll get a transaction, or my cost of acquisition is. I think it's about, you need to be really good on your numbers and to know what action is giving you a result. And just off the back end, not so much particularly about funding, but in particularly difficult times, there are so many questions that need to be answered. If you're unable through your own experiences and your network's experiences to solve that problem, or feel that you've solved it adequately, I would encourage the people on this panel to reach out to those in an industry sector that they believe would maybe be able to help them. And Catherine's already spoken eloquently about, you know, there are many people like Catherine that want to give back and to want to help, and it doesn't take much to reach out saying, I'd love to have your thoughts on this. Could you help me with this decision? I'm not sure how to approach it. What have I missed in you know, this assumption or this you know, strategic move for my business? Ratify it with people you think can give you sound advice, not just family and friends, which most of the time will always tell you you're famous.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my advice.
And yeah, my advice would be, I don't think you need to act like a man to succeed. So just full stop. So, you know, I just want to clarify that with some of the things we've kind of talked about, how we had some attributes in us that may be more masculine. So I'm authentic in everything that I do. And so if I have those traits that are more dominant in me, it is what it is, you know. And I think you have to really understand who you are and what you're good at. And you really have to maximize those traits. And you have to find a way to use those to just showcase who you are and why what you can do is going to be amazing. So just, you know, firstly, I think it goes to the point that, you know, you're solving a real problem, that the TAM, that the market's big enough, strong unit cost economics at scale. So, you know, assuming you can kind of, that all is true, well then, you know, there are some things that you have to do to be able to make this viable and get it funded if it needs funding. And they may not be natural to you. They may not be things that you've ever done, or they may involve skill sets that you don't naturally have. And so, you know, you absolutely have to be critically thinking. You have to have attention to detail, and then you have to have the ability to zoom out and kind of see the bigger picture. You know, you are taking a huge chance, putting your whole future on the line to do something risky. So you do have to use that risk and belief that you have, and you have to take some big risks and put yourself out there. You know, you have to pretend you have the confidence if you don't have it. You know, and then you've just got to start to meet people. So you've got to use the different networks that exist, and you've got to get out and meet people. You've got to network, and you've got to talk up what it is you're going to do and why it's going to change the world.
Thank you. Thanks for the review, and thanks for everyone's attending. That was just fantastic. So we have, you know, we have been giving many tips and good pieces of advice. Probably it's not that scary, you know, as what we thought before. And hopefully this kind of a webinar will drop a little positivity into your journey as a founder. So I also noticed that we have a bunch of questions coming now. So I will be turning over to Monica to moderate the Q&A session.
So yes, it was very interesting discussion, and I'll try not to mention the questions that were partly addressed. I also see that some questions are answered in a written manner, but we'll start from the first one that came out from the audience. In terms of raising capital, what is the range that a pre-revenue startup should ask for? That's a pretty basic one. Who would like to answer this one?
I can answer it. You raise what you need. There's not a number. Like, you know, it's like you do your plan and you raise for like 12 months, no, maybe 18 months. I wouldn't pre-revenue be raising 24 months, and you have a runway, and you have to have a really clear forecast of where your business is going to be in 12, 18, 24 months, actually 5 years. But, you know, for that funding that you're doing, you have to have enough funding to get you to the 18 or, you know, 24 months. And so it's not a number that you pick out of the air. It's a fact. And you have a bit of a buffer in there, but it's like the costs that you need to either build what you build or hire the people or the legal costs. So it shouldn't be an unknown. It's not a dark art. It's a fact.
I think, further to that, if you were to go to a traditional bank and propose to seek a loan through traditional channels, the loan through business banking would be, what are the funds being used for? What's your financial forecast? Why are you deploying the funds in that way? It's not unlike a VC asking the same questions. Do you need to spend that much on R&D? Do you need to spend that much on your product? Do you need to spend that much on marketing? What output, what tells you your marketing spend will deliver this result? It's a rigorous discussion. It's not a simple, I'd love $1 million, here we go. So.
And I'd just like to add, like, we have a benchmark. So VCs, Antler VC, for our very early stage startups in the program, the ones that we invest in, we do 150,000 for 10% equity, $100,000 of that is cash. So that's what you get if you're successful in our program, and then we support you to get more funding, because that's not going to give you much of a runway. And so there are programs out there that have specific amounts. Ours is one of them. And as Catherine said, you know, you'll know what you need in order for it to be successful.
All right, so the next question. Some VCs are advertising their interest in investing in early stage businesses. Do you recommend pitching within the angel investment community prior to VCs? What's your take on this, Vanessa?
I mean, pitch to everyone you can to get as much feedback as you can. You can never pitch too much because you never know who that person is going to be that gets you and believes in you. So there is no wrong place to pitch. And I think that it's continuous, and Catherine can attest to this, and Siobhan, that it's just a continuous cycle. As you grow, you'll need more funding, you'll need more people. So there isn't one place to pitch.
Okay, and then another question is to Siobhan. We're all talking about how to acquire new customers. Could you tell us more about what startups can do to find more touch points?
More touch points. Okay. Well, I mean, I think there's another question there. I might bundle the two together, to be honest, in relation to knowing whether your business is actually a sound model. So a quick précis that I would do is, what is my problem that I've understood through my personal experience, or what problem am I trying to solve? And make sure that you've ratified, first point, there is a problem in the market, that it's not simply an extrapolation of your own experience. Once you've clearly understood the problem, make sure that the solution you're proposing holistically solves that problem in a meaningful way. So, I have seen many examples of people saying, this is the problem and that's my solution. And there's a very loosely connected, threaded link. The solution really could be a solution to multiple problems. So there's a direct disconnect. And I think that needs to be rigorously, discussed and washed with business people in that sector. I don't have much experience in certain sectors, but I have deep experience in, financial, mortgages and that sort of background. Don't talk to me about clean tech. I don't know much about it. So go to the right people that know their business area. Then make sure you've got an opportunity to create a revenue model from it. Are people willing to buy it? And again, you talk to family and friends and mostly they'll be buoyant about your idea. But if you said it's going to cost you $50 to do that, what do you think? People can say, oh, well, I'd rather, get it for free. So make sure that you've got a revenue model, make sure it's scalable. If you're looking only to do it in Australia, we're a small country relative to other markets. So again, further to Vanessa's earlier comment, what is the market capacity? And if you've ticked some of those boxes, then you've got sort of the makings, the minutiae of a product, of a business that then you can probably work very hard with. From a customer touch point, the gold standard in business is to have customers' eyeballs on you before they even know they need to be a customer. Now, that's a really hard thing to do, but when you look at what is my immediate touch points of customers, how do I promote that to them before they even think they need me is the real challenge. And that's business specific. And that's sort of mentoring or coaching that you could access through different people that have areas of expertise in certain areas. So I won't take up too much more time, but that's some of the things to consider. Hopefully that's answered that question.
Thank you. So the next one is for all three of you. As a female founder and leader, how do you find a suitable core members or co-founders?
Catherine.
I did briefly have a co-founder, and then the co-founder had some restraints. And so for about 6 weeks, I left my job on the false sense, pretense I was going to have a co-founder. And then my rug got pulled out from under me. It was me. So anyway, that's a story in itself. But, I kind of see being on my own gave me speed. I didn't have to kind of get anything through anyone and talk. I could just do it all. So, I moved really incredibly fast. But then what I've missed is, it's kind of like my poor husband and kids. And then now my investors as well, who I kind of ring up. So, so what I've missed is where you have co-CEOs and, and I kind of think that would have been neat having someone that could have had the commitment and the dedication as much as I do. So it's just in my head, all the time. So it would have been really lovely to have shared that craziness with someone. So I think you can do it alone. I've done it. And I think you can do it. So don't kind of think you need a co-founder. you can hire. So I didn't have the tech experience. I had the really deep experience in the product that I needed to create. But as far as how you need to build it, I didn't have that. So, you know, then it's just really important that you hire the right people so you can buy that. So, you know, I think kind of think about, you know, do you just buy the talent that you need where you're lacking? And do you really need a co-founder? However, if you are lucky and you can find someone who kind of, it's like that perfect relationship. If you find someone, Mrs., Mr. Right, whatever, who ticks all those boxes and kind of gives you what you need, I think you're really lucky. I think startup working hubs. So I started off at Stone and Chalk, you know, and so often you can find people at so either at Antler or, you know, at working hubs or in different programs. And I think a lot of people start this journey thinking they're going to do something and it either doesn't work or they kind of, I hate the word pivot, but they kind of then end up doing something else, you know, deviate a little bit to solve an adjacent problem. And so potentially, you know, if you're in that scene, if you're in the community, you may find people who are aligned to what you're doing. And you may kind of find there's someone who's trying to solve a different side of the same problem. And then there's like this natural fit. So I think you have to kind of be in that scene to be looking, you know, to be able to meet someone though.
I also want to add, think about why you want a co-founder. Like if you just want a co-founder because that's the thing you should do, or because, for instance, Antler prefers co-founding teams than individual founders, then, you know, if that's the reason you're doing it, that's not the right reason to be doing it. Like, obviously, Catherine's incredibly successful and has done brilliantly with Bright, and she's done it all on her own. I mean, with her team behind her, but she knew what to build. So, yeah, think about the reasons and make sure you're looking at it for what's going to work best for your business, rather than just because it's an industry norm. And
the next question, just try to keep the answer short, but I'm pretty sure it can be 1 hour forum on that one. Any advice for newbies starting the business during COVID times? And also keeping in mind, what do you do actually to keep your startup going through the hardest time, so to say? What are the core values cultivated in your startup? So first question is about any advice for starting business exactly now, because obviously many businesses failed immediately when they started. So how to kind of maybe shift from that one to a success story? Any advice, any ideas on that one?
I'll just quickly say two things. If you've got a real genuine problem and it's even more exacerbated because of COVID, then that would further validate that the problem needs a solution, a new solution that you might be able to build. So that would be one area. If it's completely unrelated to the current environment and the problem is still profound and still exists, then it's still a viable thing to build out and to explore further. The notion of, I think it was in the 1920s, wasn't it? Someone said, whatever's been, you know, built and designed today, there's nothing more to invent. How silly they were. So there's always new things to solve and new ways of engaging. So I'd encourage people to do it. Obviously, it's a more difficult time and you need to be cognizant of that when you're starting off. But if I can just sort of reflect, I mean, 15 years ago, we didn't talk about startups. We simply got on and built our MVP, as we call them today, and we tried to sell them. And if we had a couple of customers, we got going, and then we had a bit of cash flow. So it was a little bit different to what we talk about today. So don't despair if you're bootstrapping for a year or a year and a half or 2 years. There's plenty of people that are a 10-year overnight success. So, you know, keep that in mind. And, you know, the core issue when you're falling into difficult times, I think the real reason you should never go into business for the sake of making money. If that's your primary goal, then I think you're always going to find it difficult when life gets hard or business gets hard, because that's not motivating. You don't get out of bed because, hey, I really needed to earn extra dollars today. You generally should be passionate about the problem you're solving, and that should be enlivened and enriched even in difficult times.
I'd love to just add a quote. I once saw an interview with Quincy Jones, who's I'm a big fan of, an incredible music producer, for those who don't know. And he was asked about what all the different projects he'd worked on and any that hadn't worked. And he said there was one where the team looked on paper like it was amazing, but it was all about creating revenue. And he said as soon as the focus was on money, God left the room. So the passion and commitment is going to drive you, not the drive towards commercial success.
Hopefully commercial success is a byproduct of your passion being
exactly Thank you, Freddie.
flex to its maximum.
So
and
yeah, you would like to add, Catherine?
Oh yeah, I was just going to say one thing, like also, you know, I think it's really important to believe in yourself and not to get distracted or carried away by what other people are doing, and kind of, you know, so Bright on the outside is very successful, but you know, it's every day it's chaos. You know, so you've just got to kind of like just always remember that Facebook and Twitter and everyone's lying to you. And so, you know, even the people that are successful, it's really hard for them every single day. It's really hard when you're in this kind of gig and you choose to be a founder or you choose to grow a company. And I think it's an amazing profession to choose, because if you're solving problems and they're huge problems and they're going to make a difference in the world, like what you're doing is has unbelievable purpose. But it's really hard to pull a rabbit out of a hat. You know, it's really hard to create something from nothing. And if you can do that, you know, it's in itself, it's amazing. It's an amazing contribution to the world. But I think you've just got to always remember it's really, really hard. Other people may make it look easy, but I'm going to tell you it's still really, really hard. So, you know, when you go through tough times, just keep on going. Surround yourself with networks or, you know, people, or read some great books, but, you know, keep going. You know, if you need help, ask for it. You know, don't be embarrassed to reach out because you think other people are going so well and, you know, you can't put your hand up for help. You know, and I think it's just really important to ask for help, reach out, and just keep on going. And I will tell you, it's an incredibly tough journey. But if you are going to make a difference, like there will be nothing that can be more rewarding.
So the final question, how do you pitch and talk with as many people as possible, including people working in the industry, to validate your idea without exposing it to the competitors and making it viable for them to execute it instead? Any takeaways on that one?
I would say ratify that the problem is a sound problem, that you've identified there's actually a problem, and that, you know, when you're ratifying your problem, you'll often, with the right people, they'll often say, yes, no, that is a problem, but I know of a business that's doing A, B, and C, or I know someone started to think about solving it in this way. So you start getting market research around other participants, whether it be domestic or international, that have got a way of solving it. So I would start with really strongly validating that there is a problem or a gap, and then, you know, be very pointed in who you discuss the solution with. And you can often put an NDA around that as well.
And I would also just like to add that comes back to something that we're always assessing with the startups that are pitching within Antler, and that is, how big is your moat? So how big is the protection around the idea that you're creating? And if it's unique enough, and if the technical build behind it is, you know, you're not sharing that, you're sharing the solution, then it's going to be much harder to copy. But if it is an idea that is easily copyable, then I'd be questioning the validity of the business. And
then, yeah, and I'll add in, like, I think amazing ideas, you know, they're everywhere. And so I kind of think people shouldn't be as scared about sharing the idea and like worrying about people copying it, because it's not the idea, it's the execution and the courage and the confidence. And so that's what people don't have. You know, everyone's going to have ideas. You go to the pub on a Saturday or a Sunday and like everyone's got ideas. There's no shortage of them, but not everyone can have the get up and go and the courage and the resilience to act on their ideas. And so, you know, I was always pretty comfortable sharing stuff. And I just had this strong belief that I had the ability to kind of execute on it. So that's my view on it.
Well, thank you so much, all three of you, Catherine, Siobhan, and Vanessa, for really good insights into the industry, especially from a female perspective. And I think you aspired more female entrepreneurs also to apply to our She Loves Tech competition. I must mention that She Loves Tech competition is having its very first round in Australia, and the deadline to apply is 11th of September. We also left a link in the chat box. And in case you have any questions, you're free to reach out to Tangram about the competition details, or just visit the website shelovestech.org. And I would like to wrap up. With that being said, I hope that you're going to continue your entrepreneurship journey in case the audience were hesitating about it. And feel free to reach out to any of the speakers because, as you can see, all of us have a lot of resources to give. You just need to ask, so to say. So thank you again. Connie, final words to you.
Yeah, again, yeah, thanks for everyone. Thanks for our speakers. Like we have all the talk about all the issues from different perspectives. Yeah, so we still have the upcoming events, and I think everyone can find that out in chat box. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Everyone. Bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.